What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the PRO Mormon Podcast. My name is Philip Reber. I think it's episode 7, 8, something like that. Sorry, I got real thrown off during the whole holiday season. I got sick 3 different times, so I'm all sorts of jacked up. But I really want to dive in today on something that's really cool, and I don't think I've talked about a ton on the podcast yet. But that is specifically why I wanted to start doing a podcast, right? And I think I can break it down to a couple different reasons here, but specifically, there's 2 reasons I want to highlight here. So I get asked this a couple times, what was the purpose of starting the podcast, and kind of what is it that drives me to do it, and what motivates me, where do I get ideas for it, all that crap. That sounds weird, but whatever. And really, I'm gonna break it down to 2 parts. Number 1, it serves as a great motivator for me to kind of keep up on my studies, right, and stay sharp. I remember when I was a missionary, for example, I had a very difficult time explaining a certain principle of the gospel or a certain idea if I didn't know it pretty well myself first, right? So this podcast, for example, serves as a great opportunity for me to make sure that I'm staying sharp and I'm staying up to date on my studies and I'm doing really well, because if I don't feel comfortable explaining a principle to you guys, I probably don't know it as well as I believe I should. So this really means that I have to make sure I'm focusing on what I'm studying, and that I'm really studying it a little more in depth instead of just, read your scriptures, do the normal stuff, right? So this in-depth study process is helping a lot. Number 2, this is something I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to. Being LDS, especially a millennial LDS person, we all spend a lot of time on social media, whether that be YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. And it can be very difficult to find uplifting, quality LDS content online, specifically YouTube. Very difficult to find anything positive on there. And because of that, there's this void, right? There's a lot of negative, quote unquote, anti-Mormon stuff that's put out there. And then there's the Mormon stuff that's put out, by the church, extremely high quality, high production, beautiful, inspirational videos and messages that are put out by the church. If you haven't seen any of them, go check them out. The Mormon channel, Mormon messages, things like that, they're beautiful, and I love all of that. But there's really not much in between. You got the extreme anti stuff, and there's a lot of it, and you have the very high quality stuff that's put out by the church. And then really, you kind of get a little bits and pieces of stuff here and there in the middle. And that's kind of where I felt like I kind of needed to put some stuff in there, right? There's so much negative stuff out there online. And there's the vast majority of people who see this other side of it, the positive side of things with the LDS church, don't really talk about it much. We talk about it a lot within ourselves, within our own little community, so to speak, but we don't voice our opinion online a lot. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to dive into that. And I don't want to shame anyone for not putting out their testimony or their opinion online. That's their own decision. They don't have to do that, obviously. But for me personally, I felt like there was a need for some uplifting, positive LDS content that wasn't necessarily coming endorsed by the church, but just from an individual who happens to believe these things very strongly and wants to share what he believes, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be a calling or, some really divine whatever that inspired me to do this. This is just a normal guy, right? So it gives an opportunity to be a little more casual, Obviously, what I'm saying is not to... I want everyone to be very clear about this. This is not to take the place of anything that the church puts out at all. And any of my opinions that on accident may not be aligned with the teachings, that I'm not 100% familiar with everything as well. Obviously, go with what you know and what the church is saying. That's not what I'm not trying to contradict that at all. What I'm saying is that I think it's, just like you have your teachers in school, right? And you got the punk kids who don't want you to learn. There's a lot of kids in school who could help you learn, be a little tutor for you, something like that. And sometimes coming from a person like that, it's actually easier to understand than from coming from an actual teacher, right? It's a little less casual. Your guard gets let down a little more. It's a little more natural. And that's kind of what I feel like this really has the opportunity to be, right? We can develop a little community where we can talk and be a little more, just a little more casual about things, a little more, just a little more open, right? And as I mentioned in a couple episodes, I think in the first one specifically, this podcast has never been anything. I don't want to debate people. I don't want to have people on here to, oh, my church is right, your church is wrong. This is right, this is wrong. We're going to defend ourselves. That's not what this is for. This is really just trying to be positive, talk about the good that comes from these teachings and why it's helped me in my life and how I believe it can help you in your life. Pretty straightforward, right? So, two main things. One keeps me really good on my studies, and the other one keeps me, kind of fills that void between the stuff that's put out by the church and kind of something a little more casual, so that way we can kind of just have that going. But I really feel like more positive LDS content needs to be out there, specifically because that anti-stuff's coming out, and it's just like they're really strong, and everyone is entitled to their opinion, and they can put out whatever they want, obviously, but I feel like it's not very representative of my generation. I have so many friends who are strong LDS members who don't want to put this stuff out there online, and that's okay, but I want to be something that's a little more representative of what's really going on. So, quick little turn here. So going on my first point, I talked about keeps me good on my studies. Something actually cool kind of happened this morning. I was reading in 1 Nephi chapter 2, and as I'm sure a lot of you have read the first couple chapters of 1 Nephi, because we all start the Book of Mormon and we get about 20, 30 pages in and we don't ever read anymore. So I'm sure we're all very familiar with the first couple chapters of the Book of Mormon. Even people who have never read anything else probably read those ones. There's a part I've read, hundreds of times probably, and it's when they first leave for the desert, Lehi with his family, and they get to a valley and a river, and Lehi decides that he wants to name this valley and river after his two sons, right? And I think common sense would tell you, if you know a little bit about the story, if you were going to kind of bestow this honor upon your children, wouldn't you want to, kind of name these landmarks after the children that you're the most proud of, right? Your obedient, strong, faithful children, namely Nephi and Sam. Well, he doesn't do that, as you're well aware. He names them after his problem children, Laman and Lemuel. And I'm sure I've read this 100 times. It's never jumped out to me. But today, I thought, why would he do that? Why would he name them after his problem children, right? And he explains how he wishes that they would be strong like the valley, and how they would be, constant like the river, and things like that. And it's a great teaching opportunity for his sons. But I think what really jumped out to me was something that I don't know. It's something I really enjoy. And I think that we really need to focus on is that sometimes the Lord will give us things and give us honors that we do not deserve at all, but we need, if that makes sense. For example, right, I remember I was on my mission, and anyone who served a mission knows that there's a lot of drama in the mission when it comes to who gets moved to a senior companion and a junior companion, then a district leader and a zone leader, right? You kind of go up the ladder and down the ladder. And there's all this drama about who's going to get moved up first and all this stuff. So he was a district leader at 6 months. He must be a great missionary. And there's all this drama that goes into it. And I remember I talked to my mission president about it a little bit, because it was not bothering me, so to speak, but it was a little weird because no one really prepares you for that side of it. And I was just talking to him one-on-one. And he told me the story about a guy in his mission who was student body president, captain of the football team. He was a born leader, right? And he talked about how when he was a missionary, his mission president at the time never called him to any leadership position. I think he finished his entire mission as a senior companion, and that was it. Which, if you're not familiar with, that's not very high up on the mission hierarchy, so to speak. And this actually bothered my mission president too. So he goes and he asked his mission president, and he told him that he wouldn't have learned anything from it. He had no reason He had no reason to be in that position because he had nothing to learn from it, right? And my mission president used that as an opportunity to teach me that you do not get these positions, in the church or in the mission, whatever, when you deserve them, but when you need them, right? Which I thought was just super cool. It's just like, boom, light bulb. So for example, I don't get called to be a bishop when I've done enough things within the church to earn the right to become a bishop. I may be called to become a bishop when obviously there's a certain level of worthiness involved. But whenever the Lord needs me to learn something that calling or that assignment could give me the opportunity to learn. Does that make sense, right? So you do not earn your calling, or you don't earn a lot of the opportunities and blessings that you receive in your life. But you are given those opportunities because you need them, because the Lord needs you to learn something from that opportunity. All right, for example, anyone who knows me knows that I'm not the most extroverted type of person, which I know sounds weird because I'm sitting here talking to a camera, but I'm not one to really go out there and just try to motivate people and talk all the time. And I've had a couple, assignments within the church where I've had to do just that, where I've had to speak in church and stuff and get up in front of people and talk, which is stepping outside of my comfort zone. And I don't know why, but perhaps the Lord needed me to get more comfortable with it, so that way I could later on, help him in a different area within his work, right? It wasn't because I deserved that opportunity. It was because the Lord needed me to learn something from that opportunity. I think that is such a big thing that we all need to learn. And this is a great example of exactly why I started the podcast, right? Something small that I think I may have even overlooked in my studies in the past really stood out to me. And I think it's a principle that I could share with you guys that I think is interesting and we could talk about a little more. So if you've experienced something similar, or you got some ideas, or maybe you disagree with me, leave a comment leave a comment for me below. I'll try to respond to them as quick as I can. Reach out to me on social media and all of that as well. But I think this is a great way for me to kind of stay good on my studies, and hopefully we can kind of keep this going and kind of fill that void I talked about, and really push and make a lot of positive LDS content that we can put out there for people, because I think it's greatly needed. So, all right, if you got any questions for me, as I mentioned, reach out to me on all the socials, and that's all I got. Thank you very much, especially if you're still watching at this point. I think we're like 13 minutes in, so I appreciate you taking the time. Go check me out on SoundCloud if you don't have time to watch the videos. You can always just listen to them that way. Thank you very much. Have a great night or morning or whatever. It's night for me, so that's why I said great night. And hopefully you're having a great 2018 so far, and it's going to keep going awesome for you. Thank you very much. See ya. Bye.